Ever spent hours trying to detect a production issue, wishing you could see exactly what happened? Yeah, me too. I'm Uthman, software engineer with 7 years of experience, and I'm happy today to share with you my solution that keep on track every single request, method call, exception with their own parameter. Zero code change, only 3 annotations, and you are ready to go. This will give you complete visibility into your application from quick understanding to detect performance bottleneck. So let's jump into the code. For this, I have a simple UI application that display all the application and the HTTP request that belong to the same log. In the code level, I created an e-commerce application that have a couple of controllers, let's say. For example, user controller that have all the business related to the user, like create, delete. I added only auditable class above the class level, and it will be done. All the function below this class, it will be auditable without any extra thing from us. So let's test this. To trigger the create user, you have to send a post request with API user. Let's trigger it from the Postman collection. You will find the Postman collection in the description level. Yes, the user got created. As you can see before, we didn't have any application or any HTTP request. Let's wait for a second. The cron job, it will start between 0 to 20 seconds or so. Sometimes we have to wait a couple of seconds. Yeah, an e-commerce application got created with version 1, and at what time it get created. If you want to see the HTTP request detail for this application, yes, you can. The URL, the method, how much time it takes, yeah, at what time it get triggered, and also you can see the details. Here for HTTP request details, you have a couple of headers. For example, let's see header 1, argument 1, argument value 1. Where this come from is from here. Yes, when you send your when you trigger the Postman, it saved all the headers, of course, and the parameters that belong to it. So here, and the parameter, you can see the parameter here, parameter 1, parameter 1. In the function tree, you can see that the create user, as I showed you in the code level, it's get saved that belong to this namespace, and the response type, it will be response entity. The function taken as an argument user, and it respond as I showed you, response entity with the user, response entity with the user. Let's check again. Yes, it will response entity with the user, and it take as an argument the user. Below you can see also the tree of what this controller triggered. For example, it triggered service with the function create user that belong to this package. If you can see in the code level, if you can go to it, yes, here is the create user that have some business, and inside the create user is also another function that called validate user data that have a couple of validation, let's say. Yeah, for create user is also triggered another function that validate user, and it's saved. Also, it's safe in the how much time each function is triggered. This is why I said in the beginning you can detect the bottleneck performance issue, where exactly is the function responsible for the slowness inside your application. Without adding too much logs in it, it will be automatically detected. You can see also the graph of the function tree, like the user trigger the create user service, and create user service is the one that validate user data function get called, and how much time it take, 3.01, 94, and this one and 13. As I showed you before, the service will trigger this validate user data that I add a couple of validation inside it. Let's say that we are gonna throw arithmetic exception. For example, any number divided by 0, it will throw an arithmetic exception. So to trigger this, you have just to send an empty username. Okay. For example, empty username. And okay, for email, I have to change it because there is another validation in the beginning before triggering this function that validate if the email already exists. So to trigger empty username, yes, it will give you general exception. Let's go back to our application. Let's wait as always a couple of seconds. As you can see here, this is the new creation of the user post with the creation of the user, but it throw error 400 and how much time it takes. If we go to the details, as I showed you before, the create user called validate user data, and validate user data is the one that throw this exception, like Java link arithmetic exception, like what is the exact message divided by 0. In the logs or in the response, you don't see what exactly is the issue, but in the log level, you can see what's happening inside your application. So for this, let's validate another one. Let's throw in this time wrong email format. For example, if we go back, let's change to be unique, and I will not send an at. Let's trigger, yes. Let's see again. All the HTTP requests. Let's wait. Yes, here is the log of this one. It takes, so create user called validate user, and validate user throw our exception invalidate email format. So invalidate email format is here. As I said, I have to change the username and email each time because there is a validation before them. Username already exists or email already exists. There is like a validation before. So if you send the same email as I sent in the first request, is also trigger another error. If we can see, okay. Yes, here, if you can go create user, this time, yes, create user is the one that responsible from throwing this exception. User already exists, because before you are triggering validate user data, you are throwing the exception. This is why we are catching the exceptions before triggering validate user data. Now, let's say you want to log all the function, but only one function specifically you don't want to be logged in your system for some reason. For example, it have some password or something. I will give you an example. For example, get all users. It will call internal function that take 300 milliseconds, and it will return to us all the users inside our database. Let me trigger it in the beginning. Okay, get all users. If we can go back to our application, I think, yeah, this is the one. So get all users will trigger the service get all users also, and there is an internal call, internal helper that take 300 milliseconds. This is how you can detect which function take too much time, but it's not our main thing. Now, I said you don't want this function to be logged. So for this, you just add annotation non-auditable function, and that's it. Let's restart application. Okay. And trigger the same API. Okay, let's go to HTTP requests. Okay. Yeah, it got called. In the log level, you can see the controller get all users didn't call the function of the service get all users. It called indirectly internal helper. This is because this function annotated with no auditable function. So you can see only what's inside this function. Another note, if you put the function as private, also it will not be auditable inside your log because the proxy can't access your function. Now let's see another scenario where you don't want to save the input of the function or the output, or you don't want to save both the input and the output. You want only to see that this function get called and how much time it takes. For this, we have one more annotation which is called auditable function. Let's say, for example, in the update of the user, in the put update user, it will call this function. Okay, have some business. What you want to do is just add this annotation, auditable function, that take as a parameter one of this four parameter. None mean it will not save the input and the output. It will save that only the function got called and how much time it take. Save all is save the input and the output. Like I showed you before, it's the default one. So if you didn't choose anything, it will save all automatically. Save request, it will save only the request. Save response, it will save only the response. Let's save only the response in this case. Okay, let's save, let's restart. Okay, let's go to our Postman collection for the put. Yeah, I will update with this information. Yeah, application got started. Yeah, I updated the values. Let's go now to our application. Yeah, let's refresh. Yes, the put got triggered with the user 82. If you can see, yes, this user update didn't save the argument, not auditable request parameter. So it will not save the input of the function. It will save the output, but it will not save the input. The same if we did the save request. Okay, let's restart the application. Okay. Let's send. Okay, get triggered. Let's go back to HTTP requests. We want to see another put. Okay. Yeah, another put, it get triggered. Yeah. For example, return type is not saved in this time. No auditable response result gets saved. So for this, you will not save only, you save only the input, not the output. If you are wondering what is this a yellow one, update user 82 or fetch user something, this is another feature that if you want to add internal log inside your function, you can call this auditable writer service with log business info. It will save whatever you are triggering, update user with ID 1. So if you want to add specific log for in development, let's say, to debug some issues, you can add this annotation, this you can call this service, or you can call another one. Let's say we have only two: log business information and log business error. It's just it's just the naming and just how the UI will understand it's yellow, it's an error. It's let's trigger it and let's see how it will look. Come on. Yeah, get triggered. Let's go back again. Oops. Yeah, this is our application. Yes. So what we have is update, then error, then it's another information. This is how you can use an internal log inside your system. Just auto-wire this. I will show you later how you can install all this function or all this application at once, but for now, let's just try to understand the functionality. Now, let's move to another aspect of the application. As I showed you before, when we triggered the first API, an application get created with the version and what time it get created, and the instance, as you can see back, it was 1. Now we have 10 instance. What is instance and what's the use for it? For example, if you have multiple microservices or multiple instances of the same microservice, let's say 3 instances of the same microservice, different server, different port, different container, as you want to deploy your application. This will help you to identify what is the logs that come from a specific instance of the microservice. So each instance of the microservice, it will be identified in different instances inside our application. But you can see here we have 10 and we didn't launch 10 instances of our application. Yes, if you close your application and you start it again, it will consider as different microservice. The logs of the previous one, it will get killed and it will start again. As you can see here, I killed my application and started again in different instances. For example, 3 something, yes, 335. So this is all the different instances of the same application. So if you can see here specifically what's happened inside this log, you can see only the log that belong to this instance. So for this instance, I triggered only once. I didn't restart. After it, I restarted the server. Let's see again, for example, this. Yes, this have couple before I restart the application. In the actual world, you will not find small. No. You found all the logs because you will not restart the application each time. You will restart it each deployment or each failure or something. This is how you can keep a track specifically for your applications. Now, as I showed you before, you can see here HTTP request, all the logs that belong to e-commerce application. So e-commerce version 1, this is how you can see it. All the instance you can see specifically through this view detail of this function, yes, for this instance. But now I will give you another example for you to understand perfectly. So here, our e-commerce application, let's duplicate this application. So let's imagine that you are starting multiple instances for the same application and v3. No, okay. Because the first application is running in port 8080, we have to change the port inside this. So server double point port double point 8070, and the version 3 is 71. Okay, get user 71. Let's run them. Okay, let's run the second one. What I'm running? I'm not inside the directory. cd e-commerce v2 cd e-commerce v3. Okay, it's got started. For the instance, I want to delete the old instance just to show you how the multiple instance is working. For example, we don't have any more instance. Okay, we don't have any instance now. It's instance 0. So if you trigger the old one, let's say some unique data. Yeah, get created as port 8080. 8070 is another data. 8071 is another data. Okay, let's refresh our application. One instance get created. Let's wait for some time. We need to see 3 instances in this view. Yes, 3 instances get created. If you want to see all the e-commerce application version 1, you don't care about the instance, you just click here. You will see, yes, 8080 at how much time it take, 8070 and 8071. But if you want to see specifically, as I told you before, for specific instance, what happened inside it, yes, you will ensure you can see here only 8071. Here, the application John, this is the instance that get created. Of course, we have a couple of filters that you can use, like the status, input date, duration, like for example, duration. Where is duration? Yes, how much time it take, let's say bigger than 300 millisecond. 300. Add filter, yes, because it is 300. Let's say 400, it will not display it. Yes, you can add the filter as much as you want, or you can remove the old filters and you can see all the data. Here I remove all the filters. Let's see above 300 now. You can see only 2. Yes, only 2 instances. Now let's try to understand how this application works. For this, I created 2 strategies, database strategy and file strategy. Let's start with the first one, database. For this, all the logs of your application got be saved in this table, log dump table. I will show you the schema of the database in the code level, but for now, let's continue. So it will save us which instance is belong, the content, the timestamp, exception in case of exception happen, and the persist. Persist is, let's say, if you deleted all the logs from the UI level by mistake, you can return to this table, and for the persist, you can do persist equal null again. The cron job will read again all from this table where the persist is null. This is what persisted mean. So as I said, the cron job will start each 20 seconds and it will save from the log table to this table. So we have an application with a specific version. Each application have a couple of instances. Each instance have a couple of HTTP requests. Each HTTP request have some parameters, argument, and functions. Each function have some function argument and business request, as I showed you in the code level. This is the database strategy. In the coding level for the same strategy, you have to inject one auditable writer jar. I will show you later how you inject this writer. What the job of this writer is, the one that is responsible of reading each request and save it inside the log table. So this auditable jar, it will save inside the log dump table, and the cron job of another application, it's called persist utility service, is the one that responsible of structuring the log dump to more organized tables. Let's go to the code if you want to understand more. Let me just for a second, let me delete this one. Okay, let me kill the application first. Kill the application first. Delete. Yes. Delete. Yes. As I told you, you have auditable writer that doesn't have a main class. It's just a jar that you will be injected inside the other application. So for this, you have just to clean install it. If you want me to do it here, let's see cd auditable writer mvn clean install. Okay, when this get installed, it will go back to where, to your PC. .2 .m2 repository com then what, com audit writer service, audit writer, what version, and here it is the jar that you installed. Okay, so the jar is .m2. What you want to do in the e-commerce application, in the POM level, you want to integrate the same jar. So the jar is this group, where you can find it, and which version. In the code level, you have to specify that, as I told you, that I have two strategies, database and file. You have to specify that now I'm working with a database strategy. So for the audit, you have to say that, yes, I'm working with database strategy. The async is, you want to save sync or async mode for database. You have to enable sync in the, enable the sync of your Spring Boot. The name of the application, as I showed you in the UI level, it will save like e-commerce version 1. Yes, this, let's say you deploy your application and you want to disable the login of the service, the repository, the controller, exception, and component for some reason. You just make them as false because there are too many logs inside your application and you don't want the service log. You can just disable it without even go back to the code level. Yes, and we have the last one is the persist application. This persist have cron job that will run each 20 seconds, or you can configure it here. Let me configure it here. Yeah, this guy, it will run each 20 seconds. That will read from the log dump table and it will save in the proper tables. And of course, the chunk, how much line or rows it will read from the database. So start processing. For me, it's like 220,000 line or whatever you want. You can change it based on your strategy. Just one more thing in the e-commerce application that I forgot to tell you is in the application you have to add auditable writer scanning. So it can scan the table, how it will save, how it will give you the ability of services. For example, as I showed you before, log business error, it will come from this annotation. So if you auto wire this service, it will not, it can't be loaded until you add the scanning of the services. Now let's talk to the last strategy, is the log file strategy. For example, not all your applications are connected to the same database, like the log table as I showed you before. All of them, but all of them have a log file. This is why all the application will save their log inside the log file, and each day or each 2 hours, the time you have to specify in your application, of course, you want to trigger the file to my persist application. I have an API, I will show you how it will work, but you have to manually trigger the log from your table from your application to my persist application. Why? Because your application is the only one that can access the log file. For example, if you are running a multiple container and you don't have a persist volume or something, only your application can access the log file. So you have to add cron job inside your application that send the file to my system. So what the strategy is, the same jar you inside your application, it will log not in the database this time, it will log inside the log file. After it, there is 2 steps. First time, you have to create the application. Of course, create the application with the name that you specify inside your application. And you also have to create a cron job schedule every hour, let's say, that import the file or trigger the file from your system to my API that I exposed to you to the same persist application, and it will be done. All the logs will be persisted the same way as the database. I will show you how. Let's go back to our e-commerce application. For the strategy, it's database no. it's a log file. Only you have to change the log file. Here where you can find the log, see logs application. So if we go back here, see where is logs application. Okay, let's me delete everything. I can delete because it's the application is already running inside this one. Let me stop it for a second. Okay, no, now let's save. Yeah, it's saved. We don't have anything inside it. Let's run the e-commerce application after I change the logs. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Yeah, application got started. We trigger the same 8080, of course, same different data. Yeah, the user get created. If you go back to the logs, as you can see here from this line below, this is how the logs is saved inside your application. So this means it's saved inside the file, not inside the database. So for you to trigger this to your database, what you need to trigger is let's say okay, let's change the application name like log file, so you can make the difference between them. Not a problem. Okay, trigger it again. We trigger it again. Okay, exception because the same username. We can see both of them. Now, if you want this to be persisted in our application, you have to create the application manually. If you can see here, no, e-commerce log file, it will not populate here. As I can show you, I have one application that will import, as I told you, the file from your application to my persist application by triggering this, but the application is not yet created. So what you have to do is create it manually because you are using the log file, and the version is version 1. Yes, application get created, the instance is 0. Now if you import the same log file, the audit imported successfully. If you refresh, you will find only one instance. If you go inside it, yes, you can see that I triggered 2 times, one before I changed the application name and after it. Yes. So another thing about the log file, don't worry if you are sending the same log file to the same instance, it will not make a difference because the application now where it stopped reading, if it is the same instance, if it is not, it will read everything separately. So don't worry about anything in the log file about the duplicated link. So I'm importing a couple of the same log file, but if you can see here in HTTP request, you will find only 2 because you triggered only 2 times the user creation. Let me trigger it again so I can give you an example. Yes, it will throw an exception. So if I imported the same log file, you will find 3 post requests. So let's have a quick review of what we did previously. Auditable class to save all the functions that below this annotation, not auditable function to eliminate specific function from the logs, or you can add private before the function, it will not be logged. Auditable function, if you didn't use auditable class and you want to use auditable function, yes, it will work. It will save only specific functions inside your class. You can use auditable function in another way, like you want to save only the request, the response, or you don't want to save anything, only the time of the function. Auditable writer service, if you want to add specific log for specific version, like log business information or log business error, as I showed you in the UI level. Also the self I called, if you remember, I called the function with the self, not with this. So for example, in the code level, as you can see here, I have a function. I didn't use this inside this function. Why? I use self because Spring Boot proxy, if you call this inner function of the same class, it will not consider it as an external. This is why you use a self. What is self? Self is the same instance of the same class that you are using, and you are using application context, so you are like auto-wired the same bean. It will not create another bean of the same user service, don't worry. So why I'm doing that? The self, it will consider another class for Spring proxy. So when you call validate user data, it will consider it, yes, it's an external class, it's another class that I have to logged in the system. If it is the same class like you are using, if it is the same function like you are using this, if you are using this with validate user data, it will imagine the code like this. How this is what Spring Boot proxy will imagine it. It will like replacing the function inside it, not replacing, but how he will understand it. Yes. Yes, for the multiple instance, as I showed you, container 1, container 2, container 3, this is how you find, for example, some issue in some container, or if you are running it in different server, you will identify that this server has some problem in some CPU usage, in some RAM. I have to add. You can do some report on this server based on some instance. Yes. One last thing about the I think it was database. Yes, the database application, it will be unique for specific name with a specific version. So if you create a different version of the same application, it will consider it as different one. Let me give you an example. If we restart this application, okay, version 1.2, it's all 8080. Yes, let's trigger a couple of calls. Let's say any call. I don't know what all of them do. Just trigger a couple of them. I don't know what they do actually. Just to show you the example. I have multiple controllers, like get order, get product, get anything. Yes. If we go back to our example, if we refresh, no, if we go to the application, we find that new application get created with version 1.2 with one instance. Yes, we didn't refresh this application. If we go to the HTTP request, yes, we find patch, get, post, how much it get triggered, maybe more, maybe less. Yes, at what time, the host that have this application, and the same details. So I just want to say that if you change the version or you change the application name, it will be new HTTP request. Of course, you can delete everything of the filter and you can see all the application like e-commerce version 1, version 2. Like you can see here specifically version. Where is version? Yes, version 1.2.0. Yeah. Yes, 1.2, or you can see with application name, not application version, like e-commerce. I will not misspell this one. Yes, version 1 and version 2 for the same application. This is how you can use the filter. Last thing, I didn't show you how the UI you can start it. It's an Angular application that you can go directly to the package and start it with ngserve. Before that, you have to install it through npm install, like this. Go to the viewer, npm install. It will install. After installing, you can just do npm serve and it will start serving. Okay, npm serve. npm start, not npm serve, npm start or ng serve, npm start. Oh, it's already been started inside this, I think. So it will say the port is already used. You will not face this issue, but yes, it will be populated like this. And I will show you the repo, how it will look like. We have Oracle application. If you are using Oracle database, you have to use this example. For example, we have persist, tuple writer, e-commerce application, HTTP request everywhere. If you are using PostgreSQL, you can use the same. It's not difference. I will just show you different example for the different databases. The log file is a little bit different. We change only the strategy inside this. You can use it directly if you are working with e-commerce application with the log file strategy. Yes, I will leave also my LinkedIn in the description level. If you have any question, I will happy to answer it. And that's it. I think we reached the end of the video, and I hope you will find the application useful. Thank you.